Right, let's go over the check your understanding. So it says Mythbusters investigated the question, is yawning contagious? Here's a brief recap. Each subject was placed in a booth for an extended period of time and monitored by a hidden camera. 34 subjects were given a yawn seed by one of the experimenters. That is, the experimenter yawned in the subject's presence before leaving the room. The remaining 16 subjects were given no yawn seed. So we're asked to complete the first two steps of the significance test. So my parameter, what am I interested in finding? My parameter is P1 minus P2, okay, which is the true difference in proportions of people who would yawn. Okay. And I use the word would instead of just who yawned because we're predicting for the population. We don't know who actually yawns and who doesn't. So, and we're gonna look at yawn seed minus no seed. All right, so then let me make sure I have all my notation right. This has got to be a subscript as well as this. Okay, so then my statistic is going to be my p hat 1 minus my p hat 2. So the proportion of people who yawned with a seed, so 10 out of 34 is 0.29, and minus the proportion who yawned without a seed, so 4 out of the 16 is 0.25, which is 0.04. So if you need to write in there, we did 10 out of 34 to get that, and 4 out of 16 to get that. Make sure you have that in there. All right, so then my hypotheses. Okay, we want to know, is yawning contagious? So if it's not contagious, there should be no difference between our P1 and P2 because yawning is not contagious. It doesn't matter if there's that yawn seed or not. If it is contagious, then our alternate hypothesis should say that P1 minus P2 needs to be greater than 0. Okay, that is, oops, I forgot the not in there, not contagious. And then yawning is contagious. And we are asked to work at the alpha equals 0.05. Actually, it doesn't say in there. And since it doesn't say in there, that's why we're going to use 0.05. Okay, our next thing is to name our procedure. Okay, so this is a 2-sample Z test for P1 minus P2. And then we need to check our 3 conditions. So we can do that. The first condition is always random. So random, it says in the problem that they used random assignment. And so that's important because this is an experiment. We're not using random sampling, but it's important that we have random assignment so that we can show causation. Our second condition is the 10% condition, okay? Remember, the reason we use the 10% condition is if we're sampling without replacement. In this case, we have no sampling here, okay? This is an experiment, right? So we don't need to check this. Okay? Kind of an important thing to remember. We don't need to check the 10% condition when we're doing experiments. All right, our third condition is the large counts condition to check for a normal distribution. So let's do that. I have my two samples. So my original group was 34, a size of 34. So that's the Yan seed group. Okay, so my sample size is 34, and they had a proportion of 0.28. So when we multiply those together, we get 9.5, which is not greater than or equal to 10. So that's not true, right? And we have 34 times 0.72, which is equal to 24.5, which is greater than or equal to 10. So that part is true. Now, where did I get this 0.28? Why did I use that number? Okay, because that's different than this number that we got up here, right? So what I did was I took the number who yawned for both groups divided by the total for both groups. And that gave me 14 out of 50, which is this proportion here. Okay, so we often call this P hat C or P hat combined. All right, checking our other sample size. So 16 times 0.28 equals 4.5. Again, not greater than or equal to 10. And then 16 times 0.72 gives me 11.5, which is greater than or equal to 10. Okay, so a couple of things. We don't need the large counts condition, which means that we should, if we decide to move on, proceed with extreme caution about using a normal distribution to approximate a probability. Okay, so within this, what this is telling us is we probably need a bigger sample size. All right, if you have more questions, of course, as always, ask them in class.